Peace, guys. What's going on? Patrick, Conservative Rap. And in this video, we're going to talk about Fort Knox. This is part 2 of a series. I call it AKA Where's Our Gold At? JP Morgan was once credited as saying, gold is money. Everything else is credit. And by making a series, I don't mean to harp on this issue, but I think it's important because it stems significantly into the development of the golden age, as Trump would say. First, we audit USAID and the government. It becomes natural to then audit Fort Knox itself. It's like even for normies who haven't been able to awake to this stuff, there's a natural progression of the exposure, which I'm just naturally attracted to. And just like many Democrats, rhinos, the fake news, deep state operatives are having trouble defending, how billions of dollars can be sent to Somalia for transgender opera singers or what have you, they're going to have an even more difficult time defending the kickbacks and the multi-general wealth manipulation the more it becomes exposed. The thing about Fort Knox is it's our gold. If you're like me, you and everyone you know is working harder and harder, and on top of the taxes increasing with more inflation, the dollar's worth less. The value of the dollar, in effect, is a hidden form of taxation if you really think about it, and it's occurred slowly over multiple decades. So if the gold isn't there, or if the amount is different in any significant shape or form than what's currently accounted for, what's the dollar really worth, right? Part of freedom isn't simply freedom of speech, it's the end of the hyper-liberal policies both here at the border and abroad, but there's a bigger type of freedom, and it's the fundamental economic reality that we're operating within, which I think this audit will begin to expose again. So a lot of this is just theory for now, but just like Trump is talking about dividend checks due to savings occurred from decreased government spending, I think by this time next year, and again, as of this recording, it is March 2025, by this time next year, we can be looking at abolishing the IRS as a whole, right? An end to taxes due to revenue from tariffs, the revenue from oil sales, drill baby drill, which can cover the lower operating cost of a shrunk government fundamentally, and the abolishment of the Federal Reserve, which is really, this creature from Jekyll Island mentality, if you really think about it. So I'm going to get into a few quotes I found on X and a few articles online. The first is from Trump, and Clandestine on X put this out. I'm going to do something. All my life I heard about Fort Knox. That's where the gold is kept, right? But we're getting a bit shaky. We're getting the yips on this stuff. I want to find out. So we're going to open up the doors. I'm going to see if we have gold there. We want to find out, did anybody steal the gold at Fort Knox? It's a pretty amazing place, and we're actually going to go. We're going to inspect Fort Knox. We're going to open up the doors and ensure we actually have 400 tons of gold or whatever the actual amount is. It's a lot of gold that's supposed to be there. And I don't want to open it and find out that the cupboards are bare, which could happen. The next is from Glenn Beck, and I'm not a big Glenn Beck fan, but he makes a solid argument here. It's not enough to just audit Fort Knox. The U.S. also has gold reserves in Denver, West Point, and the Federal Reserve. The Trump administration must check out 4 at the same time to leave no room for deception. And lastly, here are 2 articles I found from the Mises Institute, both from an executive editor, Ryan McMakin. And I'll provide links to both in the comments below or in the body below. The gold at Fort Knox was stolen from Americans. So this article discusses a push for the audit of the U.S. gold reserves, particularly at Fort Knox, due to the lack of audits in the last 40 years. Ryan argues that much of the gold in Fort Knox was stolen from ordinary Americans during Roosevelt's efforts to end the gold standard and confiscate private gold holdings. So the gold reserves are seen as a legacy of the U.S. government's broken promises to redeem U.S. dollars in gold, right? Think about it. At one point, we can go to a bank, give them dollars, get gold in return. Eventually, they bought all the gold. They taxed us, used revenue from taxes to buy and confiscate gold from gold owners, and then held that reserve to themselves, right? So this article highlights the U.S. government's default on gold-based Liberty bonds in 34 and its refusal to pay foreign governments under the Bretton Woods system in 71. So Ryan concludes that the U.S. gold reserves are the result of lies, deception, and theft fundamentally. Another is called, again, from the Mises Institute, how much gold does the US government own and where is it? So key figures in the Trump administration have called, of course, for an audit of the gold reserves, particularly at Fort Knox, which holds less than 60% of the government's gold, the federal government's gold. The last proper audit was done in 1953, with audits in the 1980s and brief inspections of a partial nature taking place since. The U.S. Treasury claims to hold 8,133.46 metric tons of gold, the largest reserve in the world. Most of the gold's current, which is stored at Fort Knox, West Point Mint, the Denver Mint, and a small portion at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York as display pieces. So the official valuation of the gold is outdated at 42.2222 per ounce dollars, right? While the current market value is around 2,900 per ounce, making the reserves worth 757 billion. However, this somewhat insignificantly impact, in his mind, this somewhat insignificantly impact national debt or government funding. An audit will reveal whether the gold is truly there and address concerns of dishonesty and a lack of transparency in the federal government. In Ryan's mind, the value of the US dollar and the funding of government programs aren't really tied to the gold reserved, but he does see it as a hidden legacy of historical theft and deceit. So again, remember, this is the original J.P. Morgan. Gold is money. Everything else is credit. Trump also said it should take him about 6 to 12 months before he really has the economy in place that he envisions. I'm wondering why he provided that specific timeline. Also, I find it interesting. Before the election, Biden, the Fed, the fake news, they all said the economy was strong. But as soon as Trump won, right, these same people said the economy was weak. So which one is it? Again, guys, very excited about this. This is one of the stories I'm going to be following closely over the next few. But what do you think? Comment below, like, share, subscribe, and look forward to more shortly.